Trump thought he was walking into London as the world's top dealmaker. Instead, he walked out, waiting for permission. Yes, permission from China. After launching a full-blown tariff war on April 2nd, after bullying allies, threatening rivals, and parading America's supposed dominance, Donald Trump showed up to announce a victory, only to reveal that the final decision still belonged to Xi Jinping. Ever heard of a trade deal that still needs approval from one side? That's exactly how China just humbled Trump. The US declared success. China stayed mostly silent, calm, vague, and commanding. While Washington screamed about progress, Beijing issued one cold line. They had reached principled agreement, the kind of language that leaves the real terms hidden in plain sight. Just think about it. Trump had to call Xi to even get in the room. He walked in demanding concessions. He walked out offering them. This wasn't a deal. It was damage control. So what really happened, who really holds the power, and who called the shots behind closed doors? And why is America suddenly negotiating from a position of weakness? In this video, let's find out. Donald Trump unleashed his global tariff war on April 2, 2025, fully expecting the US economy to shrug it off, while the rest of the world wilted under the pressure. This wasn't framed as a negotiation. It was portrayed as punishment. The White House boasted the tariffs would force foreign leaders to beg for mercy and make major concessions to end the pain. But China didn't flinch. Rather than fold, China retaliated with mirror tariffs, and then struck a move Trump never saw coming. It halted exports of 7 rare earth minerals vital to US industries. Among them was samarium, essential for fighter jets, missiles, and advanced magnets, in everything from electric vehicles to robotics. Trump's advisors had predicted the Chinese economy would falter under this assault. Yet instead of collapsing, Chinese exports surged by 6%. Chinese manufacturers cleverly shifted their shipments toward Europe and Southeast Asia, bypassing US markets. Meanwhile, the yuan strengthened against the dollar. Trump's assumption of escalation dominance collapsed in real time. What he had hoped would be a game of pain transfer became a reality of strategic dependency, and suddenly, America was the one at risk. Major retailers like Walmart and Costco, and even automakers publicly warned that shelves would run dry and factories would grind to a halt if rare earths didn't start flowing again. Yes, Trump's aggressive gambit had backfired spectacularly, and he found himself scrambling for China's cooperation. However, China's response to that scramble was anything but dramatic. It didn't shout, it simply tightened the screws. By freezing samarium, neodymium, dysprosium, and other key rare earth exports, China didn't destroy the supply. It weaponized it. The result was shockingly effective. America discovered that China controls over 85% of global rare earth processing and the full supply of samarium, a metal US manufacturers cannot easily replace. No samarium means compromised jet engines, stalled missile production, halted EV drives, which are serious national security concerns. As panic spread through strategic supply chains, Trump's team realized the stakes were far higher than previously assumed. Economic leverage had slipped into existential vulnerability. Therefore, by mid-May, US negotiators were in Geneva, desperately seeking relief through a 90-day truce. That agreement halted tariffs, but the rare earth supply remained bottlenecked. China reopened shipments, but under a new licensing regime that conveniently omitted samarium. It became clear that Washington was negotiating under duress. And then Trump took the step no president would want to admit. He phoned Xi Jinping. Official Chinese reports emphasized that Xi took a phone call from US President Trump, a diplomatic sleight of hand that flipped the narrative. The US had to ask, while China held out. That phone call triggered the secret 2-day summit in London, but it didn't signal equality. It revealed who had leverage and who was scrambling for crumbs. So Trump flew to London, projects and photo ops in tow, though China never needed to reciprocate with a counterpart summit. The U.S. claimed progress, but China issued only a vague statement about consultation mechanisms, deeper consensus, and principled agreements, language that masks concessions in diplomatic ambiguity. Rare earth supply remained unconfirmed, and samarium was still stuck in Chinese hands. America had stepped into a negotiation that should have been about mutual trade terms and ended up with China dictating the agenda. The result left Trump with a deal that still requires Xi's signature. His leverage evaporated, and his image as a global tough guy severely undermined. The London meeting was supposed to be Trump's big moment, a triumph after weeks of rising panic. With American industries on edge and rare earth supplies still throttled by China, Trump arrived in the UK's capital not as a power broker, but as a man racing to clean up the mess he made. When he emerged, he declared victory. On paper, it sounded like a win. China would supposedly resume exports of rare earth materials. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. Trump went on camera claiming that full magnets and any necessary rare earths will be supplied up front by China. But the applause he hoped for never came. Because outside the echo chamber of American media, one detail overshadowed everything. There was no official agreement, not a single joint press conference, no ceremonial signing, no treaty. Just Trump's voice and China's silence. The Chinese side, meticulous and intentional in their language, released a brief and cryptic statement filled with vague phrases like progress, ongoing consultations, and implementation of prior consensus. To those familiar with diplomatic language, this was not confirmation. It was a polite stall. The centerpiece line of the statement made this perfectly clear. The two sides reached a principled agreement on implementing the important consensus reached by the two heads of state during their phone call on June 5th. That sentence did not confirm action. It confirmed intent, maybe. At best, it was a polite way of saying, "We are thinking about it." And yet, Trump couldn't walk away empty-handed. Facing intense pressure from the business community and needing to project strength during an election cycle, he scrambled to spin the meeting as a sweeping success. To do that, he bloated his announcement with tangential talking points that had nothing to do with the rare earth crisis. He cited unrelated victories like the supposed reopening of Chinese student visas and touted that the U.S. would be imposing 55% tariffs compared to China's 10%, as if those numbers held any real significance in resolving the critical resource gap that triggered the talks. This wasn't a trade breakthrough. It was a media performance, and an increasingly desperate one. The biggest clue that Trump had given more than he let on came from his own words. "We will provide to China what was agreed to." That line raised eyebrows across Washington. It wasn't a declaration of specific terms or a list of mutual concessions. It was evasive. Why no specifics? Because revealing the truth would have triggered bipartisan outrage. It was evasive. Why no specifics? Because revealing the truth would have triggered bipartisan outrage. Behind closed doors, it became increasingly clear that the U.S. had quietly walked back key AI and chip technology export bans, especially those imposed under the Biden administration. These were some of the most powerful tools the U.S. had used to curb China's tech ambitions, tools Trump once praised. But now, under pressure to restore access to rare earths like samarium, neodymium, and dysprosium, he had likely traded away critical leverage just to get China to reopen the tap. You see, it was a reversal of the very strategy Trump built his presidency on. For years, he promised to win against China using tariffs, restrictions, and pressure. Now, in one desperate act, he offered Beijing access to the crown jewels of American tech. And all the while, the U.S. public remained in the dark. There was no mention of chip licenses in the press release, no word on lifted export controls, just vague lines, puffed-up declarations, and a disappearing act from the Chinese. That's where Xi Jinping's silence spoke louder than any headline. While Trump strutted for the cameras, Xi didn't have to say a word. That was the real message. In this negotiation, he held all the cards. He didn't call Trump. He didn't travel. He didn't tweet. He didn't even leave Beijing. He waited until the panic in Washington reached a boiling point, until America's supply chain began grinding to a halt, until corporate giants cried for help, and only then did he answer Trump's phone call. Even that was worded in a way that suggested dominance. President Xi took a call from U.S. President Trump. It wasn't mutual diplomacy. It was a response from a position of strength. And what did Xi secure from this silence? Everything that mattered. China's dominance over rare earths was left untouched. Its leverage was proven and publicly demonstrated without firing a shot. Meanwhile, America, the so-called architect of the global order, was left begging for materials it couldn't produce or replace. Worse, the price paid wasn't even clear to the public. All signs pointed to a hidden concession, that the U.S. quietly scaled back on chip export bans to make the deal happen. Xi got what he wanted without appearing to yield a single inch. And the optics were damning. Trump came begging. Xi took his time. Trump flew across oceans to plead in person. Xi never left his office. Trump made noise. Xi controlled the outcome through silence. It was a masterclass in asymmetric power. While one side relied on pressure, the other used patience. And in the end, it was patience that prevailed. The consequences stretch far beyond rare earths or chips. This entire episode reveals a fundamental shift in the global order. The post-Cold War era, where the U.S. dictated trade, technology, and alliances, is fading. China doesn't need to challenge America militarily to assert itself. It can just quietly strangle critical supply chains and wait. It doesn't need to boast. It simply needs to withhold. And when it chooses to grant access again, it can set the terms without ever appearing in the spotlight. This is why the world is paying attention. Not just to what was said, but to what wasn't. While Trump tried to dominate the airwaves, Xi dominated reality. And the lesson for every world leader is now painfully clear. In the 21st century, silence can be louder than sanctions. Supply chains can speak louder than speeches. And in the new global balance, the one who doesn't flinch is the one who rules. What do you think? Why would any world leader declare a deal that still needs someone else's approval, unless they are desperate? Can a superpower still be called one if it has to beg for essential materials from its rival? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on whether America's era of dictating global trade finally ended, and is Beijing now writing the rules? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, changing world order, and current affairs, things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.